Poseidon was not just the god of the sea. He was the force behind every storm, every crashing wave, every moment when the ocean turned from calm to chaos without warning. Among the Olympian gods, he was one of the most powerful, second only to Zeus himself. As the brother of Zeus and Hades, Poseidon stood at the center of the balance that shaped the world. But unlike his brothers, his domain was never stable. The sky remained above, the underworld remained below, but the sea was always changing. And so was he. When the world was divided after the fall of the Titans, Poseidon claimed the oceans as his realm. At first, it seemed like a domain full of life and beauty, endless waters stretching beyond the horizon. But the sea was never truly peaceful. Beneath its surface lived creatures unknown to the world above, ancient beings that moved in darkness, far from the light of the sun. And above, the waves could rise without warning, turning calm waters into destruction in seconds. Poseidon did not just rule the sea, he was the sea. Unlike Zeus, who ruled with authority, or Hades, who ruled with silence, Poseidon ruled with emotion. His moods shaped the oceans themselves. When he was calm, the waters were still, reflecting the sky like glass. But when anger took over, storms would rise, ships would break, and entire coastlines would tremble under the force of his power. This made him both respected and feared, not just by mortals, but by gods as well. He carried a weapon that symbolized his power, the trident. With it, he could command the seas, create storms, and even shake the earth itself. Because Poseidon was not only the god of the sea, he was also the earth shaker, the one who could split the ground and cause earthquakes that shattered cities and changed the land forever. His power was not limited to one world. It moved between them, just like the tides, but power alone was never enough for Poseidon. Like many gods, he desired recognition, control, and influence beyond his domain. He wanted to be seen not just as a ruler of the sea, but as a god worthy of worship across the entire world. And this desire would lead him into conflicts not only with mortals, but with other gods. Because the world above was not as easily controlled as the waters below, there were moments when Poseidon's anger would rise not from chaos, but from being denied, from being challenged, from not being chosen. And when that happened, the consequences were never small. Entire kingdoms could suffer because of a single decision, a single moment of pride. Because unlike the sea, which could calm after a storm, Poseidon's anger often left lasting damage, and this was only the beginning of his story. Because there would come a time when Poseidon would face something he could not control, not the sea, not the earth, but fate itself. And in that moment, his power would be tested in a way even he could not predict. Poseidon's desire for power and recognition did not remain confined to the sea. While he ruled the oceans with absolute authority, he constantly sought influence over the world above. Unlike Zeus, who was accepted as the king of the gods, Poseidon's power was often challenged, and this fueled a deep sense of pride within him. He did not want to stand in the shadow of his brother. He wanted to prove that his strength, his domain, and his presence were just as important, if not greater. This desire led him into one of the most famous conflicts in Greek mythology. A rivalry not with a god of war or destruction, but with the goddess of wisdom. When the city of Athens was to be claimed by a divine protector, Poseidon and Athena both sought to become its patron. The people would decide which god would rule over their city. Based on the gift each one offered, Poseidon stepped forward first. With a powerful strike of his trident, he shattered the ground, and from it emerged a spring of water. It was a display of raw power, a sign that he could bring something extraordinary into the world. But the water was salty, undrinkable, a reflection of the sea itself. It was impressive, but not truly useful for the people who would live there. Then Athena made her offering. She planted a simple olive tree. It did not carry the same immediate power or spectacle, but it represented something lasting. Food, oil, wood, life. It was a gift of stability, of growth, of future prosperity. The people chose Athena. For Poseidon, this was more than just a loss. It was an insult. His reaction was immediate and destructive. The sea rose in anger, waves crashing against the land, storms forming without warning. He showed the world what it meant to deny him, what it meant to reject the power of the ocean. His rage was not quiet or controlled. It was overwhelming, consuming everything in its path. And while the city of Athens remained under Athena's protection, Poseidon's anger left its mark, a reminder that even in defeat, he was not powerless. This was not the only time Poseidon's pride led to destruction. He was known for his temper, for reacting to disrespect or defiance with overwhelming force. Sailors prayed to him not out of devotion, but out of fear. They knew that the sea could turn against them at any moment, and that their survival depended on his mood. A calm journey could become a disaster in seconds if Poseidon chose it, but his influence went beyond storms and waves. As the earth shaker, he could strike the ground itself, causing earthquakes that destroyed cities and reshaped entire regions. The boundary between land and sea was not fixed under his rule. He could blur it, break it, and redefine it whenever he wished. This made him one of the most unpredictable and dangerous gods in the entire pantheon. And yet, for all his power, Poseidon could not control everything. There were forces beyond even his reach. Fate, the will of the gods, and the choices of mortals sometimes stood against him in ways he could not simply destroy. These moments were rare, but when they happened, they revealed something deeper about him. That beneath the storms and the anger, there was a god who struggled with being second, with not being chosen, with not being fully in control, and this struggle would become even more clear in the stories that followed. Because there would come a time when Poseidon's power would be challenged not by another god, but by a single mortal. A man whose journey would test the patience of the god of the sea himself. And in that conflict, Poseidon's anger would reach a level the world had never seen before. Poseidon's power was unquestionable, but what truly revealed his nature was not how he ruled, but how he reacted when challenged. And no story shows this more clearly than his conflict with Odysseus, a mortal whose journey would become one of the most legendary in all of Greek mythology. After the fall of Troy, Odysseus began his long journey home. It should have been simple. The war was over, and all that remained was the return. But fate had other plans. During his travels, Odysseus encountered Polyphemus, a giant cyclops and the son of Poseidon. Trapped inside the creature's cave, Odysseus did what he had always done best. He used his mind. Instead of fighting with strength, he deceived the cyclops. He blinded him and escaped, outsmarting a being far stronger than himself. But in doing so, he made a mistake. As he sailed away, he revealed his name, his identity, his victory. And that moment changed everything. Polyphemus called out to his father. Poseidon heard him. This was not just an insult. It was personal. A mortal had harmed his son, and then dared to boast about it. For a god like Poseidon, this could not be ignored. His response was immediate, and it would last for years. The sea turned against Odysseus. Storms followed him wherever he went. Calm waters became violent without warning. Every attempt to return home was met with resistance. Ships were destroyed, paths were blocked, and time itself seemed to stretch endlessly. What should have taken weeks turned into years. Poseidon did not rush. He did not strike once and forget. He made Odysseus suffer slowly, forcing him to face loss, isolation, and endless struggle. It was not just punishment. It was control, a demonstration of what happens when a mortal challenges a god of his power. And yet, despite everything, Odysseus survived. This is what made the story so powerful. Not the anger of Poseidon, but the persistence of a single human being against it. Again and again, Odysseus was pushed to the edge, but he continued. Through storms, through monsters, through the will of a god, he endured. For Poseidon, this was something unfamiliar. He could destroy ships, reshape the sea, and break entire fleets, but he could not completely erase one man's will to return home. And in that, there was something deeper than anger. There was frustration, because for all his power, Poseidon could not fully control fate. In the end, even the power of Poseidon had its limits. The journey of Odysseus could not be stopped forever. The other gods began to intervene, and the balance of power shifted once again. Zeus, who ruled above all, could not allow one god's anger to continue without end. The world needed order, not endless storms driven by pride. Slowly, the sea began to calm, not because Poseidon forgave, but because he had to let go. Odysseus finally returned home, not as the same man who had left, but as someone shaped by struggle, loss, and survival. His journey became a legend, not because it was easy, but because it showed that even the power of a god could be resisted. For Poseidon, this was not a victory, but it was not defeat either. It was something else. A reminder that power, no matter how great, is never absolute. That even the ocean, vast and unstoppable, cannot control everything that moves within it. And yet, Poseidon remained. He did not disappear, and he did not change. The sea still rises, storms still form, and the ground still trembles under his power. Sailors still fear him, and the ocean still carries his presence in every wave. He is not a god of peace. He is not a god of balance. He is something far more unpredictable, a force that can give life or take it away in an instant, a ruler of a world that is never still, and maybe that is what makes him so powerful, not just his strength, but his nature, because the sea does not need a reason to rise, and neither does Poseidon.